we never talked Fans Fest. The last time we had an episode was talking about Fans Fest, and Fans Fest was earlier this month, which is crazy to think about. Feels like it would happen like a year ago. Dennis, you want to talk about your experience? Because I know that everyone had their own experience as a 68th board member working Fans Fest. So, what was your perspective of it?
I had a hell of a time. I mean, honestly, the day flew by because it just felt like there was so much going on and there was so much space to explore. It almost felt like at times I don't want to say there was too much to do, but just man, it was hard to keep up at times because I was running from one area to the next, back and forth, and before I knew it, oh crap, 2, 3 hours flew by, and oh, I didn't get a chance to check out this player or something. So it was just, a lot of good chaos, I guess. I would phrase it as, and I had a good time.
Like, are there any comparisons from this past the one from the earlier this month versus the one last year that you noticed? Do you think it was like more tame? Do you think it was like the vibes were still the same way?
I think the vibes were the same. I think the turnout was pretty much the same. Since it was a different venue, it was a little hard to judge. For folks that were there, you guys will remember, we had, beer stands out, outside the Prescott Market, and that was around like a whole corner. And then you go back into the Prescott Market, and there's a whole area in there we were doing stuff. And then actually inside the Prescott Market, there was also, food vendors and stuff doing their thing. So there was just so many areas. That's why, like I mentioned, it was just there was people really spread out. So I think it was nice to have more space to operate. People weren't as bunched up, but there was definitely some times where I felt like, oh, I feel cut off in this area. Let me go, around the corner here, see what's going on, try and get a better sense of, the vibe over here. So, that's not necessarily a complaint, but I think the biggest comparison to last year would be that last year, it felt like a little bit more free flowing because everything was, a little bit more centralized. So that's gonna be something for us on the board to think about as we, go forward with Fans Fest next year and even other events in general.
Look at you guys are like
How
official event planners now, dude. You guys are like talking logistics, like, oh, we gotta talk about crowd control, crowd flow.
Crowd control.
No.
How can we get better here?
yeah.
Certified event planners,
There's always room for
yeah.
like improvement though. It was funny because like this year I felt that it was way more spread out, which is not a bad thing. Last year we obviously that was the biggest one we did I mean to date was last year. This year was a little bigger in different ways, but last year it was more like wow, we have like blocks literally blocked off for us with fencing and we got security and we're like, "Oh, this is huge." The one this year, well, last year it felt a little more condensed or packed, I would say. Not, which it wasn't a bad thing. And it was still free flowing, but this year there's just so much space for people to walk around. Like I was working the autograph booth pretty much the whole time, and the line was so long down the block. I was like, I can't go anywhere. So I was just staying. So if you got an autograph, there's a 400% chance you saw me there. I was the whole time trying to hold the tent from blowing over. I got the chance to walk around the venue maybe two or three times. Prescott Market was hella packed the whole time. That was cool. That was cool to see. That's gonna be fire when it's baller season because there's so much to do, so much good food there, so many good drinks. The tap room's gonna be open. The stage area was cool. I think it was perfectly set up. It was the most the craziest group of people that we put together to date, if you think about it, because we had like professional wrestlers from AEW just there. Warren G just pops out.
Yeah, Warren G,
We
dude,
have
that was
former
hilarious.
MVPs. It's just like, oh, and it didn't hit me that day, but then I think it was like maybe 3 days later. I went to get a haircut, and my barber hit me up. He was supposed to go to Fans Fest, but they couldn't close the shop down. There's only two of them mending it down. It was on a Saturday, which I get. So he was like, "Hey, like, how did your event in the West go?" And I was like, "Oh, it was cool. It was good, man. Yeah." Warren G popped up, and I just like said it casually, and he's like, "What? What?" Like, he's like regulators, Warren G. I was like, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, man, the G Child.
yeah, so I that's when it hit me. I was like, yeah, that was pretty cool. So I don't know. Kevin, you came in pretty like towards the end, like the tailwind. Did you notice anything different from this year versus last year?
I mean, I mean, so yeah, I showed up late, and I really liked the music that was going on. I was sitting there with Dennis, and like I think I had like some free whiskey. I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. Later on, I got walking around enjoying myself, so I was like, yeah, this is perfect. Like the biggest difference between last year and this year to me was like, I think last year was like really sunny. It was like a really bright sunny day, where this year was like a little muggy.
Hmm.
But that was really the only difference.
Yeah, we got lucky with the weather. Like I remember it was raining that whole week, and then I think it rained a little bit that Friday the night before, and then Saturday I was like, as long as it's no like 0% chance of rain or 2% chance of rain, I'm good with it. So we got lucky with that. That's I mean, if we're complaining about it,
Dude, what
the rain, then that not being a factor, then we did a good job. So
I was gonna say, what about like Canseco and Tejada and stuff like that? Did you guys have any interactions with them? And like, what was that like,
Hey,
you
can I
know?
let me
yes,
take that one because I have some thoughts on Conseco, man.
go ahead.
He was obviously one of my childhood heroes. I mean, I was born '83, so when I first started watching A's baseball, I was a Canseco, you're either Canseco kid or McGuire. I was a Canseco kid. So I loved Jose Canseco, and I've seen him, when he played, with the Pittsburgh Diamonds in the Independent League about 10 years ago, 2015. Um, and I'm pretty familiar with, Jose Canseco, the kind of eccentric personality he is. So I kind of understand, but I was really pissed when he got on the mic and said, he basically started saying, yeah, wouldn't it be great to see me be the manager of the Oakland A's in Las Vegas? And everyone was just kind of like,
And it's physically impossible for you to be the Oakland A's manager in Las Vegas.
right. I mean,
First thing popped in my head,
I know
but
he was trying to phrase it that way to try to, soften the blow and try to still get his hype. It's like, one, Jose, you got to understand, like, no, fuck that. And two, Jose Canseco, Major League Baseball hates your ass, man. There's no way they're never going to near a fucking dugout. No, it's impossible. You're not going to be managing shit.
I remember it
As
was
soon as he grabbed the mic and started his speech off with that, because I was down the block a little bit, doing the some alcohol sales. So when he grabbed the mic, I was like, let me walk a little bit closer. And as soon as he said that shit, I was like, all right, well, I think I've heard enough. I'm just gonna go back down the other way and grab a beer and just not and just tune him out because I'm not listening to that bullshit.
I
So that's
remember
how I feel about Jose Canseco being there.
I remember like the second he said that, everyone was just like collectively was just like, what? Like read the room. Like I don't
Yeah,
think
you could have heard a pin drop. It was just kind of like, yeah. I mean, other than that, he actually said some pretty cool, interesting things besides that bullshit. Um, like I said, I kind of walked the other way, so I heard a few things he was talking about, but otherwise, that really kind of dampened the mood on that. But I mean, we're all familiar with Jose Canseco. We all know, the crazy antics he's had on social media over the past few years. So you know, I'm, I'm not surprised. Definitely not surprised. A little bit disappointed, but what else? I mean, at least he kept it interesting because he also said some really, straight up off the cuff remarks about steroids and stuff. So, I thought that was that was pretty interesting.
yeah, like low key, I think in my opinion, from working the autograph line, the biggest, most popular person there was a person that no one would expect, which is Lance Blankenship.
What?
Oh
Really?
my God. People were like, he was talking to everyone and like he was holding the lineup. So during the last session, it was Ruben Sierra, Jose Canseco, and Lance, right? And Ruben signing and the manager that he was with, clearly they've been doing these signings for years. So he had this thing where it's like, okay, how we're gonna do this? Ruben's gonna sign one thing. We're gonna keep the line going, keep the line going, keep the line going. Jose would talk to people. He would sign autographs. He would pretty much sign two or three at a time. I get it. Lance would sign whatever and share stories with you, right? And so like towards the end of the of the event or towards the end of the event and the last signing, um Ruben Sierra's manager was like, "Hey man, you may want to speed up the line. And I'm like, bro, like it's fine. Like smiles are on everyone's faces. Everyone's having a great time. And then Jose was just like, look at Lance over here, keeping the line up. He's like, he's like, no, really, like keep it moving. I was like, you know what? I was like, nah, man, like I get it, but you sign your stuff.
Uh, yeah.
He's taking the time. He gets it. He's connecting with the fans, and to me, that's what Fans Fest is. It's like you're connecting with players who care about you, signing everything, sharing stories. And I got to the point where I wanted everyone to get their stuff signed, so I was like, okay, let's keep it going. But people were like hanging out to the side talking to Lance, so I think Lance was like the most popular person there besides Miggy. Miggy was
Because
cool.
he played at Cal too, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
he was
yeah. He was
Blankenship, so
signing
he knew,
Cal
so he
stuff as
knew.
well. Yeah.
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 Yeah, like Lance, he was cool. Jamal Weeks was really cool too. He took a lot of time talking with fans, so it was more of like, not I wouldn't say lesser known, but because everyone knows everyone who was there.
Yeah.
But it was just the players who weren't necessarily the marquee names were the most popular ones. I mean, Jose is a name, Miguel's a name. Like I get
Yeah,
it.
former MVPs. Yeah, of
Yeah, of
course.
course. And Ruben Sierra, people were coming from all types of fan
Yeah,
bases.
Ruben Sierra was a huge player too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my take.
Speaking of Ruben Sierra, was it him? When a few of the guys got on stage, and I can't remember who asked the question. I can't remember if it was Rick Tittle or somebody else, but somebody asked him the question like, "What's your favorite Coliseum memory?" And was it Ruben Sierra that was like, the Kingdom."
What?
It was like, wait a minute.
So he just had
Your
zero. He had
favorite
nothing.
Coliseum memory is a visiting stadium? And
I was like, yeah, I went there as an A's player. And no, he didn't say that, but like he thought the first thing on top of his head, or he probably got thrown off.
It
Well, I,
must be
yeah.
something cool must have happened in Seattle, man. Maybe he had a special lady there or something. So that when he came to Seattle, he was like, "Oh yeah." That's what I remember.
Well, I love how Mark Canna, like, also, even though he wasn't there, he like sent that video. He's like all about it. Like, I don't know. I think like he would be like the most popular guy at the
Yeah.
thing if you ever had him there, Like, yeah, I
Jones,
think you're right. It's more kind of like fan favorites kind of things, Maybe not like the MVP types, Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
which I get because it's like you always, I feel like I'm always connected to like those random players where it's like, oh, he had that one hit, like to extended the rally, and it's like he's not a player who you would necessarily remember, like
Not
a
a huge
Chris
name,
Buck
but
type of
a
player.
guy that was a solid guy that, people who know the game are going to remember that player. You know what I mean? Because, oh, yeah, he contributed, something major, and he made a memory for you. So that's always going to stand out. It's funny you say that because one guy I think about, when we talk about, Coco's walk-off, against the Tigers back in 2012. One guy I think about, a lot of people sometimes overlook, Seth Smith was the guy who had that double.
Yep.
I always thought Seth's, that's a guy, right? A random guy, pretty solid career, not like a huge name, but people who know baseball know Seth Smith. And I always thought he was a good Oakland A. So I think that's a good example of what you're talking about. Like solid role player guys who they stand out for one reason or another. And they have a lot of cherished memories that they made for people.
In
And
case of,
they probably love to get the love from the fans too, just to,
yeah.
like they probably just love that.
Oh
And
yeah.
even with Seth Smith, remember we had that every Sunday where like Seth Smith always hitting balls on Sundays, like 'cause he always had like a single for some reason, like he was always
Yeah.
on base on Sundays. So yeah, it's players like that.
Exactly, man. It's always, whether it's something big like, yeah, he had, a hit in this playoff game to, keep the rally going or, to get the rally started, whatever it is. Or even if it's just sometimes like, oh yeah, I shared a moment with this guy one time. It's like every player or every person who goes to a game, they have players that stand out to them for one reason or another. That's not always necessarily about, oh yeah, they were the dopest one that they hit 40 jacks a year, or they were the guy who was the back-to-back MVP. It's just for one reason or another, there's players who stand out to us, and it's always cool to remember those guys.